Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Welcome to our webinar, Leading CX in the AI-Driven World. My name is Eileen Pearce, and I am your Zendesk host for today, and you are in for a treat. Joining us is RMS Cloud to chat about the custom transformation journey. But before we get started, please note that the Q&A chat window is open, so feel free to drop any questions during the webinar. We'll be responding directly into the chat window and also at the end of the webinar if we have time. We're also recording the session, so we'll make sure to send you a copy of this after the session. We're really excited for today's conversation, so let's dive straight in. RMS Cloud is a global property management technology provider who is utilizing AI to reshape their customer experience and enabling their support teams to move from reactive problem solving to having more strategic impact. We're also excited to welcome Garth Kay, VP of Customer Support at RMS Cloud, to share RMS's cloud journey of modernizing their customer experience from scaling their Zendesk environments to innovating with AI agents. And who better than to lead this conversation than Paul Bigsaw, Director of Success CX, who is instrumental in guiding and supporting RMS Cloud as they implement and test AI capabilities in the real-world CX workflows, ensuring the right balance between innovation, quality, and trust. So today, you'll hear firsthand how this partnership has made tangible difference in their CX transformation. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Paul and Garth to kick off this exciting conversation. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks so much, Eileen, and really excited to be here with my colleague, Garth Kay from RMS. Just a quick introduction. So I'm CEO founder of Success CX, which is a premier partner of Zendesk and AI certified experts with advanced AI agents. I've been working with Garth and our team over the last 10 months. And we've seen some great successes with the work that we've all been doing with Garth around optimization and continual improvement of Garth's customer service capabilities. Looking forward to sharing more with our audience. And yeah, welcome, Garth. Can I get you maybe just to introduce yourself, please?
Certainly. Thanks, Paul. Good to be talking to you about this. I know it's been a fantastic 10 months for myself personally and the team underneath me. But as introduced, VP of Customer Support, I've worked for RMS Cloud now for 8 and a bit years, many different roles in the organization. But I now look after our support and onboarding operations across RMS.
Fantastic. And thanks to all the audience for joining us. And for those that couldn't join us, there'll be a link later to access the recording. So thanks, everyone. So let's get down to some questions, Garth, and deep diving into RMS Cloud and from where you've been to the current state and the future. Very excited to talk about it. So first up, Garth, can you give us maybe a sense of RMS Cloud support operation today, about the scale, the scope, the global footprint, maybe some complexities of the environment that you're working in?
Yeah, so RMS Cloud, we're a property management system, and that can mean many different things to many people. We operate in several different verticals as such. It's just not hotels and accommodation providers. We're shopping centers, we're workforce, and different verticals. And we operate across 70 different countries now. So it is a true global footprint. Up until last year, or when we started engaging around this Zendesk transformation project, it was very much regionalized teams looking after that regional support. And some of the complexity was in regional based activities. And we weren't really delivering what I would consider a consistent high quality service across that global organization as well. Sorry.
Yeah, no, keep going, please.
Oh, look, I didn't know where you were going to go with the next question. So, why we had to transform was the next point. I mentioned 70 clients. We have multiple clients that operate across multiple regional and geographic areas as well. So it was more about ensuring they were getting the same consistent experience from our customer support and onboarding teams. The regional teams are working very independently. It was that inconsistent model. And a lot of those multinational clients have strict SLAs with us, which was a premeditating factor as to why we wanted a global organization. Our clients aren't 9 to 5. We can't be 9 to 5 for our clients. And, certainly our SLAs in some instances aren't measured in business hours. So, we needed a true global follow the sun model that worked across multiple regions, and that required scalable frameworks and consistency.
Yeah. And so you mentioned 70 countries, obviously multiple languages as well, multiple time zones. So quite some complexity there in dealing with the customer's demands and inquiries. So, I guess when we came in and partnered with you, we definitely, it was a challenge because of those complexities. One thing that we did talk about earlier was, some of the, I guess, impacts where, customer service, perhaps, the targets the targets of delivery. I think RMS Cloud, you really work to deliver great customer service to your customers. You even have, I believe, penalties for sort of breaching sort of targets and things like that. So not sure whether you want to mention anything about that, but I guess I just wanted to point that out. There are financial implications if you're not delivering the service as agreed with your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, we do have SLAs in place. There are ramifications for us in certain areas when those SLAs are not met. And SLAs, again, for us in those situations aren't measured by our business hours as we operate in certain areas. It is 24/7 support in those certain instances.
Absolutely. Just the reason why it's such important, designing a scalable system effectively work across all that complexity without compromising quality, obviously.
Well, I guess that leads into that built for scale sort of comment that I made earlier, and I can elaborate further on that. So for us and what RMS is trying to achieve, built for scale is really about offering that consistent customer experience, regardless of the geography. It is very much an SOP-led model as well. And that SOP is very focused on standard operational practices, but realistically, ticket handling methodology, our customer experience, our customer communications, the quality of the service we want to offer shouldn't be dependent on the location. It's really about why we look to Zendesk and the way we're utilizing it to create really solid foundations for that, scalable systems we're looking at. We don't want to be rebuilding this every 6 months. We want to build a scalable system with governance for evolution, but this is really designed with a 2-year customer experience vision in mind and growing upon that as we go.
Absolutely. Yeah. The built for scale is interesting. I mean, you're obviously demand is on the rise. So you really need to be, working as efficiently as you can to scale and to meet that future demand as well. Just in terms of, balancing sort of that, talk about sort of the global consistency. How did you sort of balance that consistency with, the realities, I guess, of the different markets, different cultures, no doubt, different customer needs? We talked about language as well, but there's probably some nuances there across the globe that you do need to cater for. Any sort of thoughts around that space?
It's an interesting question, and it's an interesting way to handle that. We talk about customer experience needing to be consistent. For me, that means the experience our customers get must meet their expectations, but we can't modify the product result. So ensuring that we have a clean knowledge base that provides the foundation for what the knowledge can do, what is achievable within that space. But we can be flexible a little bit in terms of our language, our tone, our communication channels. So where we have a consistent approach to product-related questions or the how-to, in terms of our methodology around engaging with the clients, that can be very regional specific. And again, SOPs guide this as well. And we can drill down further in terms of those channels. And, you and I know we've spoken quite a bit. I have an end game vision for help with where it needs. And I'm sure we're going to touch on that a little bit later. But right now, it's delivering the right information in the right way for the clients in the best way that we can.
Yeah, fantastic. This is my favorite question, Garth and team. So how important was it to getting the right implementation partner or partner in optimizing and building this capability out and getting that foundation right?
Hugely important. Like, I cannot stress that enough for my position and the experience I've had in terms of transformation and system changes. Shout out to you, Hamish, Lawrence, Elva, Amy, Annalise, Elliot, everyone that's been involved in this project. They've all been equally fantastic. But for us and the position we're in with our usage of Zendesk and us as an organization, it was very important for us to find the right partner that understood customer experience in general, that wasn't just people that were going to come in and change the configuration. It was very important that we understood this was a transformational process, not just in terms of the system usage, but in the way this organization wanted to manage itself. We were looking for guidance on what best practice was. A Garthism that's quite often heard in terms of my internal organization is, what does great look like? We want to know what that looks like. We also want to be challenged internally. So it was good to find yourself and the team, which offered me some alignment on the culture that we're trying to build. But there's a cultural alignment in the way we operate, the way we talk, the way we behave, and realistically, we wanted someone that understood what we were trying to build, so that they built the foundation that was future-proofed. So it was all together something that we took a lens to that covered people, process, and technology, and finding the right partner in that space that met all of those requirements and ticked all those boxes was hugely critical. And I'm glad that we did find the right partner in this regards.
Thanks, Garth. Appreciate it. And can I say as well, Garth, you've got an amazing team that are delivering some great service for your customers, but they have some really deep expertise and knowledge that you can't replace. We do, as Success CX, we do, see a lot of different industries and some of the benchmarking numbers and things that what looks good and what looks great, but there's no replacement for those people that are in your team that really know the business and really know the customers. So it does, it is a partnership where we can work together. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Paul.
All right. So with that foundation in place, the next step, looking sort of beyond that reactive support, focusing on empowering customers, empowering your agents also. Let's talk a little bit around, one of the aspects, I guess, of being able to scale, and that is the self-service strategy. So, the ability for your customers to access information 24/7, when and where they need it. So just how did that, tell us a little bit about how that played a role in the strategy, and maybe what gaps were there originally and what we had to work on.
In terms of gaps, I mean, we engaged because our usage of Zendesk wasn't delivering the desired data that we needed to better inform ourselves on what we needed to focus on and help define the strategy for our CX support experience. Early gaps that we identified once we had built some foundational information up. And we actually knew this anecdotally anyway, was that the majority of our customers were bypassing help center articles. Self-service was not a element of our client experience. So a lot of our customers were bypassing the help center. There was habits that had been developed of logging tickets immediately, and a lot of that ticket information wasn't necessarily relevant to the initial triage or the initial investigation. There is a high volume of basic how-to questions. As that sort of wave of tickets kept coming in, our backlog continued to grow. Backlog is the killer of many positive things when it comes to customer experience and customer support. Our first response times were declining, our backlog was growing, our customer satisfaction was declining, our resolution times were impacted. And it became quite obvious that there were absolute knowledge-based gaps, and there was absolutely issues in the way we implemented taxonomy around all of our subject matter, all of our different verticals. And that was a key focal point in terms of this foundational change as well.
Yeah, and I guess that, yeah, just sort of going back to that foundational change, that was a really important component, wasn't it? So making sure that the information was captured or was captured within the ticket so that we get actually then run reporting to analyze what the customers are asking for, and then also then sort of doubling down on those areas of knowledge that we knew that the customers were wanting and needing.
Yeah, correct.
Cool. So so onto the talking continually on that self-service. So the word deflection, sort of I'm not sure that's a very positive word. And I'd probably reframe it into sort of resolutions. And and yeah, I could talk about that. I'm quite passionate around the self-service and resolutions. How do you think, just in terms of customer experience, and one of your ongoing goals is, delivering that great customer experience. How do we make that better? So just when we mention sort of self-service and customer experience, often the two are sort of talked about separately, but can you tell us a little bit about, how it has, improved the customer experience from offering that, that additional capability around self-service?
So I think if you look at self-service in general, for me, self-service is not necessarily about blocking customers from support. And I think that's a key fundamental foundation that everyone needs to understand. It's more about ensuring that our clients are getting the answers they need in a faster manner. We spoke about some of the early gaps that we identified. So I'm going to reference Miles right now, and we'll hear about Miles a little bit later, but he is our advanced agent AI that sits right now front and center in front of our guests, our clients, I should say. And Miles is there to provide timely answers. So we identify that a lot of our volume is the how-to questions. If Miles can answer them in real time and guide our end users in the right way, that's a fantastic result. So self-service is, again, not about blocking customers from contacting support in the right avenues. It's about providing them answers on the spot when they need it, removing that low-hanging, low-complexity fruit from the equation and making sure that we're servicing up those agents. And it frees our agents to focus on more complex issues like building out and closing those knowledge-based gaps that we've identified. This shift will help us absolutely change from reactive, and it has to a great degree, and that's been a big part of the RMS lifestyle, reactive to issues to proactive customer experience. And there's going to be continued investment from us in terms of content ownership in that space as well. And you can't say self-service and stop there. It's always about this continuous improvement. How do we continue to improve upon that experience? What else do we need to do? And that's a program that we're building into our organization as well.
Yeah, no, and they're really good points, Garth. Because you are supporting your product, customers, I imagine, they have a lot of questions that probably are on high repeat. And so having your agents actually sort of responding to them manually must be a real drag. And that, self-service is perfect for those kind of inquiries, I think, where people just want to get answers quickly. They want to manage their own time. They want to be stuck in a queue somewhere. So yeah, a lot of customers are really moving their preference to that self-service. Cool. So let's now talk a little bit or examine how, we talked about sort of capturing the data, better data hygiene as part of the program of work that we did. It was around sort of making that agent workspace more efficient as well, so that inquiries got to the agents quicker. They could actually see in their dashboards what SLAs, that they needed to get on, where's the priority of work and things like that. Talking about sort of data visibility, what sort of improvements did you see in the way of that data visibility? How did it change the way that the management, I guess, and the capabilities on that support desk day to day?
Oh, so many different areas in terms of our throughput, our capacity, giving us insights into sort of field marketing operations. But yeah, I guess it boils down to it gave us more visibility into what were those low complexity repeat questions, what training items we needed to focus in on, inefficiencies within our knowledge base. It really helped us identify certain areas or features of our core application or modules that were real volume drivers, not necessarily consistently over 12 months, but at certain periods. And it gave us a real opportunity to move from these regional portfolios as well to that global team. And as a part of that global team and understanding the data behind it, it moved away from very much an agent handles all elements of questions they might get related to a certain subset of clients to a very focused skill-based model in terms of what we do. So we now have implemented skill-based routing. There's still areas for improvement in that area, but it's been beneficial to us. Agents now are more aligned to their strengths or what they feel passionate about in terms of handling client queries. And when you have agents in that position that are empowered in that way, it not only provides faster resolution and better efficiency within the support floor and the support operations in general, but our customers feel more trusted in terms of their interactions. They know they're speaking to someone that is a subject matter expert or just as passionate about them in that specific area as well. Mm-hmm. So again, that was probably the biggest benefit we had when we were able to look at the taxonomy of what we were building in our knowledge base, how our ticket forms were generated, and align the queries and the questions related to those features to someone who was like, I know that, and I love talking about it, and I want to take that forward. So it's been a positive cultural shift as well in that regards.
Yeah, and no doubt, sort of from an efficiency perspective. So you're getting say a specific inquiry type or something that one of your agents is expert in, getting that to the right person quickly for them to answer, no doubt driving sort of that improved efficiency that we were looking for as part of the program.
Absolutely, and we've got results to show that. Almost a 40% reduction in first response time. Almost 40% reduction as well in our full resolution time, and that's in comparison to our full calendar year last year. So that's impressive in a short space of time.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great, Garth. So from so we've gone from optimizing essentially. We've built out some self-service capability. We've broken down maybe some of the silos, built this global customer service capability. So the next step, and what maybe a lot of people are waiting for is the AI component. So tell us a little bit. So let's talk about, for those that may not know some of the product lineups, there is two parts to the AI capability. One is the agent side of things in the Copilot supporting the agent. The other one is the advanced AI agents. Let's talk a little bit about the agent support and leveraging AI to support the agents. Give us a little bit of a feel for that capability and how the agents and we've spoken before about bringing AI into a customer service land can be fraught with danger. There's always a little bit of concern that AI is going to take my job. We see that in the news every day. But tell us a little bit about that implementation of that agent side of Copilot and maybe some of the challenges and what you've seen. Hopefully, some of the improvements that's provided.
Well, you mentioned at the beginning of the piece, when we're talking about the team underneath me, and our people are great. They're great at what they do. There's inefficiencies in the way that we operate at times, but that'll be improved over the period of time. So valuing that human factor, it cannot be diminished from anything that we do. In fact, maintaining employee satisfaction is an OKR. So, and that's satisfaction with the AI tools as we introduce it. That's a fundamental guiding principle of the CX organization. So we framed AI, and we continue to believe that it's an efficiency enabler. It augments the ability the agents have to help them work and help engage with our our clients, it means working smarter rather than replacing their roles. That's what it is. And there's no denying that approach. The approach that we've taken here is, we're empowering our agents to focus on more complex issues, really change our motive from reactive support ticket handlers to knowledge, fosterers, creation of knowledge articles, and really, again, foster a culture of positive contribution and teamwork. So that's what AI has enabled us to do. And that's the Copilot tool, which sits inside the Zendesk application. That's just about enabling these features as well. I think Copilot itself is fantastic. I'd love to understand more of how we can leverage even more of it. But, we have a clear SOP around ticket triage that heavily implements Copilot usage, in terms of past resolutions, knowledge-based article, provisions, all of this information, almost diminishes the requirement we have around skill-based routing when the internal tools are surfacing up the solutions before you've even read the first 2 lines of what the client's asking about. So it's a powerful tool and it's been fantastic. And it sort of firmed for me as the foundation of everything we wanted to do with AI. And it gave us an ability to dip our toe in the pool before we put it in front of our clients and their guests.
Yeah, no, really, really good points there, Garth. And I think earlier you talk about, delivering consistency and some of those, some of the recommendations that AI provides to the agents. Hey, there's an article here. Maybe there's this macro that you could use to really sort of driving that consistency and all the, I guess, the components within the platform. Recommendations on what to do next is helpful for the agents. Great. All right. So still on sort of AI with the support agents, like maybe we've already answered this, but
I might have jumped ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
you might have. But yeah, look, safe to say, I think that that Copilot is really providing that support for the agents.
Yeah, look, I hit on the stats before, but I'll cover it over for everyone that's watching this. Even just that level of AI implementation at that agent engagement level, we've seen a reduction in response times already. We've improved our resolution rates. It is absolutely making our agents work more effectively, and it does have a foundational shift in terms of a knowledge-first approach. Like, Copilot didn't present a solution here. I've got to go away and find out why. Rather than, okay, I'm going to stop, Copilot didn't help me, I'm going to go investigate the ticket now. So that's been a formative change for us. That's been a byproduct naturally of our engagement with Copilot and the agent's reliance on it as it moves forward.
Yeah. And the contribution as well, I would say, you talk about continual improvement. The agents are required when they do see a gap. Hey, let's mark that down. Let's put it into, say, a draft article. Let's create some content that will help for next time. So it really does embody that continual improvement, and everyone's really part of that process to make it the best you can be.
Correct.
Excellent stuff. So that's the agent side. Now, I know it's early days, Garth. The advanced AI agent component, which is actually the messaging or the chatbot capabilities, we went live with that only 3 weeks ago. So it's early days, but wondering whether you can talk to us a little bit about what that experience was like. I mean, we've got the knowledge now. We've got the agents supported. Now it's time to roll out that that chatting mechanism, utilizing all that knowledge that you've put a lot of effort into.
Yeah, probably to preface where we're at, and I've got to say it's a soft launch, so it's a small but growing sample, but it's been a journey to get here that's seen quite a lot of querying of the advanced agent AI. So in every aspect of change that we've implemented, we have always had our support team members, from tier 1 through to tier 3 involved in the change process. So we spoke about taxonomy and forms. This wasn't a decision made at the leadership level. This was a decision that was made across the global support base with everyone's input. I'm a big believer that if you are involved in the change, you own the change, and the team certainly have. And we took that mindset towards implementing advanced agents AI. So our testing approach was very much collaborative and iterative. iterative. I can't even say that right now. We went to the support team and across our global support floor said, who's interested in working with us around this AI project? We had a lot of volunteers. So they are called internally our AI champions. And these are across every region. So we have an AI champion, at least 2 to be quite honest, in every major market that we operate in. So these champions went away and started testing Miles in the background with all of their tickets. So they were using real world examples to see if Miles was going to get to the solution that they would as well. So we went through that process, and I had set a high benchmark of 80% success rate. That's what I had set internally. That's what I wanted to see to feel comfortable. And then Miles was delivering 85% success rate. And I was quite surprised by that, to be quite honest. I thought 80% was quite a high bar to hit at that point. So I was quite surprised. We then, obviously, as I said, we soft launch. It's a small but growing sample. And our soft launch is in the portal, hidden behind a login. Like, you have to be logged into the Zendesk portal to access Miles. But it's been successful, higher than I expected. Our agents, our AI champions, they continue to monitor these conversations every minute of every day. They are actively monitoring Miles conversations. They are, offering feedback. They are grading those conversations. It was very important that, part of that continuous improvement, we make sure that Miles is also meeting our brand standards, the tone of the conversation. Did this interaction meet the expectations we would set on an agent interaction with a client? And I have to say, some of the limited interactions I've had with customers that are using Miles right now is they're surprised by the clarity that Miles offers them. There's still some workflows that need refinement. The knowledge base continues to be identified as areas for improvement in terms of the narrative or the context, which needs some uplift, which is great. But we're really, we're learning daily from real usage. And this foundation is critical to our AI success long term. So it's been a very, very positive experience and something that I'm very proud to be a part of.
Yeah, fantastic. I love the fact that you involved your agents and team members early. So you got them to actually test it, give you feedback, make sure that it was on brand, make sure that, the responses were providing, essentially resolutions to the questions. I think that is a fantastic idea, just from a change point of view, and getting your agents to really understand how this thing works, and it really is underpinned by your knowledge and IP that is hosted in that knowledge base.
I think it was enlightening for the agents as well. You spoke about that fear that AI is going to take away our jobs. There's a real realization right now that, especially amongst the support team with these champions in play, that the AI is only as strong as the documentation, the knowledge, the processes, and the people behind it. Okay, so the requirement for people to still play a fundamental part in these operations is a message that's well and truly received amongst our organization at this point.
Yeah, and I think, some of your team members are actually sort of, picking up other roles now because of the knowledge. Knowledge is so important, and there will be sort of, that continual improvement, the ongoing. There will be more sophistication to come, I think, in terms of that capability as we go on that journey. So we had a question around guardrails, and you kind of answered it, but tell us a little bit more about, that there's a concern that, that the bot could go off and, start spurting some sort of narrative that's totally off brand. Any sort of comments around sort of just testing for guardrails and making sure that it did deliver to the brand?
I think I need to just add a little caveat to the end of that question. Like, we tried to go out of our way to break Miles in many different avenues, and actually, that natural language model comes in very handy. And Miles was never dissuaded from engaging with us, to the point where sometimes he would respond with, that's a wonderful comment, but it has nothing to do with RMS. Let me know how I can help you with RMS, which is fantastic to see. But in terms of the guardrails, it was always around the accuracy of responses. That was the paramount fundamental issue. I do not want any of our clients to have a real negative experience from this engagement. Ensuring that our brand was represented consistently. Tone is fundamentally, what we need to make sure is consistent. Our people are great. We want our channels to be great. 80% solution rate. I hit on that. That was the goal That was really the goal. Rapid first response times, controlled escalation. So making sure we were controlling the escalation. I didn't want people in an endless loop asking Miles questions, trying to get where they needed to go to. And sustaining customer satisfaction. So ensuring that our BSAT or bot satisfaction was very similar to our customer satisfaction. All of that sort of safeguarded our user experience and ensure that we built trust in Miles as an AI system that was relevant to our users' needs.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, awesome. So now that the advanced AI agents is in the production environment, what's next for RMS Cloud?
We're obviously going to open up Miles to more interactions. That will be the first step. Long-term vision is help where you need it. Okay, so within our application, within our portals, embedding these areas of Miles to fundamentally funnel your queries. I have a vision that eventually, you don't query our help center. You will ask Miles and he presents the articles that you need or whatever you want. So Miles becomes the focal point rather than the portal or the knowledge base. That is ideally where we'd like to end. And then opening up the communication channels to more than just email and portal ticket submission, asynchronous messaging, chat. Phones is the next big hurdle that we want to get across. Everyone understands that phones is, time consuming, expensive, and there's avenues here to alleviate a lot of the frustrations that we have as support agents when we're pulled away from important issues to handle phone calls as well.
Yeah, and that's where AI is going to next, isn't it? So just that those capabilities are getting better and better. So that's a really exciting space. Fantastic stuff. All right, so we're on this journey, been on this journey together, Garth. What sort of finalizing, and we are sort of running out of time. We could talk all day, I think, Garth.
We do.
Stuff. And you've mentioned sort of, telephony and some other capabilities. There's some really good announcements coming out in May on additional capability around AI on this platform. What are you most excited about and most cautious as you scale and improve further?
I think the best phrase I can use is the AI that we utilize today is probably the worst AI we're going to have an experience with. So I think, AI reaching into those new channels, those new communication pathways, the experience you can offer your consumers or your clients is fascinating. And I've certainly got some thoughts around where else it could go. Quality assurance is fundamental. Also QA and ensuring that the tone, the benchmark, the experience you want to offer is consistent. AI can play a big part with that. I've got to stress that our experience and what our clients experience comes down to our agent experience, the tone they deliver, the knowledge they have, the empathy that they provide. So that will have to be something that fundamentally forms a part of our AI experience. Empathy is a huge component of that, understanding when to escalate something, when to de-escalate a situation. And that all plays a part in a positive user experience. I think culturally, having our team embrace what's going on, focused on evolving the AI experience, our customer experience, the way we handle support tickets, and just continually raising the bar. I think that's the exciting part for me. We don't know where the end game is. I have a vision for that, and I'm very excited to take myself, Success CX, and everyone else and my team on that journey to see where we end up over the next 2 to 4 years. It's certainly, for me, it's not about stopping where we're at and delivering and just maintaining. It's continually improving and adding to what we can to ensure that we have the best experience for our clients.
Yeah, and AI really is redefining what that experience is, isn't it? Like if I think about, the way that we used to search for content, a little bit like the knowledge base, you have to read through articles, you have to read through web pages, and now when you ask AI, most times, if you're using Copilot, Gemini, and those sorts of things, most times you get a really good response, particularly around sort of those technical sort of queries, and it just saves so much time. So for a customer to be able to have a chat with the bot to find the specific in context information for that customer, it really is sort of driving that fast and good experience as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, personalization at scale giving a unique experience at scale is where AI is really going to make a difference in terms of that, understanding who the persona of that person is, understanding the vertical they come from, understanding how they like to interact with AI or agents or phone. And once that forms a part of the data set behind it, you can offer some really amazing experiences utilizing AI before it even touches the human element.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, I think, just one question left. And just based on, those experiences and that journey that you've been on, Garth, is there a piece of advice that you could give the audience here about, some of the things that you've learned along the way?
My biggest one is don't aim for perfect. My first attempt at AI was it had to be perfect. It had to offer the perfect experience. And I overthought every avenue and overcooked many different things. I did not want any of our end users or clients going to miles and having a negative experience and then shutting down, never coming back again. Focusing on low complexity, high volume usage in cases and having that data to support that will guide you on the best experience you can offer. So building that strong foundation with clean data, supporting a knowledge management sort of institution, having a partner that's an expert in these areas is kind of critical as well. That was important for me. The results we're seeing is not indicative of where we thought we'd be with the tools we had behind us. So I'm quite surprised. And I was hesitant to go live without having a perfect knowledge base, without having the workflows designed. But until you really see Miles in action, you don't truly understand where you need to focus on what you need to do. So without losing the message here, focus on your low complexity, high volume usage, build what you can in terms of knowledge to support those areas. Miles as a generative AI will do a lot of the work in that space, and you'll be amazed, to be quite honest. And then adding to that, it's always continuous improvement and a very customer-centric mindset. You've got to look at AI as being an agent for you and your organization, and the experience your AI bot offers your end users has to be what you'd expect from a person at the end of a phone call or at the end of a ticket or form or chat. That's very important in terms of AI adoption as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think just that, the journey of continual improvement is super important. Implementing those processes that continually are reviewing, analyzing the data, looking at, maybe where those gaps are and continually plugging those gaps, building out the capabilities is all part of that journey. And then the generative moves into, I think, integrations with platforms and things like that. So the sophistication can be built as you sort of can cherry pick, as you said, the low hanging fruit and moving into that more sophistication.
Yeah, when you start offering AI a little bit more context around the person speaking to them, the intent of it, that's where those more complex issues start to get solved as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Garth, for sitting with us today.
No, thank you, Paul.
Look, I really appreciate your time. It's been absolutely fantastic working with you and your team, and just love what you're doing out there. So thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Sorry, Garth.
I was going to say I appreciate you and the team at SuccessEX and everything we've done, and obviously with Zendesk as well.
Thanks, Garth. Now I'm going to hand it back to Eileen. So thanks everyone for your time. I think there's some questions possibly being posed.
Yes, we have a few questions, but everyone that is on the call today, feel free to post some additional questions. We have some time. My first question is, do you measure self-service success by deflection or by customer experience?
Oh, very good question. I don't think you can. Sorry, Paul, did you want to have first?
No, Garth, please have a go at that one.
Self-service has to be a measure of both, but primarily for me, it'd be customer experience. If the customer experience isn't the best possible experience they can while they're self-serving, then you're not really delivering on the self-service model you desire. I hope that answers the question.
No, I agree, Garth. And we've, we've looked at some of those conversations and things like where we were offering, how was the experience? We found we were asking that too quickly and
Yeah.
just making it more that as an example, but just sort of, as we've been on that journey, we've been sort of, looking to improve those experiences as we see things happen and just making it as natural as possible. So I think absolutely agree that the customer experience is so important.
Yeah, you hit on a good point, because within a week we realized that we wanted to build in a workflow or a process where we qualified that the answer we provided was correct and the client was happy. And then we wanted to, measure their satisfaction in terms of that journey as well. So there was 2 steps in what we implemented, and that's been successful as well and guided us to a few different areas that we're doing very well in and a few different areas where we can improve as well.
And can I just add, if a customer has a bad experience, let's say with Miles, then that's a failure, because the likelihood is that they're not going to engage with Miles again if they're not happy with it. Go straight to the agent. So we absolutely want to give that the best experience possible.
Excellent. Well, that leads us into our second question, and I think this is directed to you, Garth. How consistent is your customer experience across regions or teams today?
It is vastly improved from what it was 3 months ago. It's still not where we would want it to be. But in saying that, I think it is more consistent across our global footprint. If you ask the same question of anyone at any time in the day, you're generally going to get the same sort of response or answer or follow-up. The differential would be on how we engage with those clients based on the region. Some of our specific clients in different areas prefer to communicate via email and do not want a phone call. The inverse applies for different regions, and picking up on those differences, it's very important to follow up on. And we are building processes around that right now as we speak, to be quite honest.
Excellent. That kind of leads into the next question of what would AI success look like in your organization, let's say from a year from now?
Multi-part answer. Miles, our AI tool, being the fundamental focal point for all product-related questions, actually all organizational related questions from our clients or end users. It's not just support. It's, you've got a billing information, Miles should be able to answer that. You get updates on product roadmap, all of those areas. AI for us as an organization is more than just the support experience as well. But in terms of my department of my organization, high satisfaction, a tier 2 model in terms of the support operations that focus more on complex issues, and proactive engagement. So more about product uplift, adoption, being aware of the issues before our clients are, and getting ahead of them and addressing those problems as we go. And that's where I'd really like to get our support team to, that proactive engagement space where we're ahead of the issues and where you can identify, certain areas for uplift within the product. AI will play a big part in guiding those administrative requirements as well.
Excellent. You mentioned this question, you mentioned kind of in the last, kind of your tips for our audience. Now, if we go a little deeper, do you have visibility today into where AI could make the most or the biggest impact within someone's organization?
Again, I'm taking this from a support perspective, but AI can make a lot of different impacts in a lot of different areas within your organization. But as it relates to Zendesk and end user experience, it is for us that shift away from support tickets being the first point of contact. It's 85% of our ticket volume is effectively how-to questions, and minimizing and reducing that volume substantially frees your team up to focus on more critical areas. I don't think there's an organization out there, well, every organization has its own issues, but I think knowledge and knowledge management continue to play a part in most issues when we talk at a CX level, CX leadership level. So allowing your agents to power the knowledge behind those how-to answers and making sure we're framing those answers in the right way, that it's well received by clients when they read an article, rather than read an article, I still don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to call support. That changes the dynamic greatly. So to answer your question, the how-to questions need to be solved as much as possible in your K-base and in your AI interactions. And your agents need to continually be focused on those how-to questions being solved at that point of contact. Now, I'm not saying that all has to be written in Word, but there's a lot of different usages in terms of media and what we can do. I've had clients recently submit Loom recordings and how-tos in tickets, and that's a fantastic way to start communicating and talking, and there's benefits in looking at those different avenues as well.
Excellent. The questions keep rolling in, which is great. One of the other questions were, how involved were your agents in your AI rollout, observers or co-creators?
Both, to be quite honest. Observers initially. Okay, so there was 1 week of observations that we undertook, managing the conversations. We had a scorecard laid out. Our scorecard measured intent, success rate, whether it was escalated. If it failed, what was the reason for failure? And we had many failure reasons. Did it match the tone that we'd expect from written communications from clients? Did it match, our brand expectations? Did we say it would meet our end user expectations? So this scorecard formed a data set behind which we made informed decisions. And when we started seeing our failure rates around different areas, our agents then went away to close those failure gaps. And that initially started with knowledge gaps and knowledge base article uplift. And now we have a few agents that actually worked with Success CX to build out their own workflows within the AI chatbot as well. So some of them took it upon themselves to start playing and building out workflows. If I get this type of question with this type of intent, and I'm going to ask a yes or no answer, what happens with yes, what happens with no? So natural evolution, they turned from observers to co-creators as well. And they will continue to play that part moving forward.
Excellent. We have time for one last question. What is your most important metric to measure support success today, and any goals in the future to where you want to get?
I struggle with the most one important success measure. I don't think you can look at a support operation and your experience that you offer your end users and go, we're doing really well if it's this one measure. You can have a 96% customer satisfaction rate, but if your resolution time across the board is, 3 to 4 days, and your clients are expecting that, it doesn't take long for observations of different competitors in different markets, but places start to realize a few different things can change fundamentally and shift client sentiment in that regard. For me, client satisfaction plays a big part in terms of every experience that we offer them. But in terms of client satisfaction, it's we want to make sure our reopen rates are low. If our reopen rates are high, then we're not delivering the right solution, or we're not understanding our clients. We also want to make sure that our backlog remains low and our response times and our resolution times are consistent. So we're always looking to improve upon those 3 areas. If you look on those 3 areas, your customer satisfaction rating is a byproduct of your efforts in those other areas. And then obviously making sure that's consistent in terms of response times and our KPIs across the globe and across all of our different teams and team members is fundamentally critical as well. I could go into more there, but I'm happy. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I could speak for days around different areas around customer experience and customer support. There was a second part to that one. I don't know if I answered it or not. Sorry, Eileen.
That's okay. We're almost at time, and so any other questions, we'll be able to share that with the audience either via email. So thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. Thank you, Garth and Paul, for sharing your time and your insights with us. It's been great hearing how RMS Cloud is approaching customer experience transformation in such a practical and thoughtful way. Thank you to all of those who joined today's sessions and asked questions in the chat. We'll follow up with the recording as well as with any unanswered questions. If you'd like to continue the conversation or learn more about Zendesk and some of our partners like Success CX and how that we can support your CX and your AI transformation, feel free to reach out to us using the QR codes that you can see on your screen. As you can see that there. And if you're a Zendesk customer and have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to your account lead. Thank you again for joining us and have a wonderful rest of day. Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much.